The chilling tale of Ariel Castro, the man who kept 3 women captive for 10 years. In May of 2013, a disturbing secret was about to be uncovered in a seemingly ordinary home on Seymour Avenue. 3 young women from Ohio who had been missing for nearly a decade were rescued from the home of Ariel Castro, the monster behind it all. Stay tuned to find out how much the 3 women suffered and what happened to Ariel Castro. Welcome to AF Crime, the channel that brings you fascinating crimes all around the world. If you're interested in this kind of content, then this channel is for you. Make sure to like this video, click on the subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell to keep you updated on our recent uploads. Now, let's get right into the video and investigate the crime scene of Ariel Castro. Castro's horrific actions did not begin when he abducted these women. He had a history of domestic violence with his ex-wife Brumilda and his daughters as well. It is said that he often subjected them to death threats and physical abuse to the point where he broke his wife's nose and dislocated her shoulder. He also worked as a school driver in the early 2000s, but was fired for leaving a child on a bus numerous times. However, no one suspected that he would be capable of such a monstrous crime. On August 23rd in 2002, Michelle Knight was on her way to an appointment about regaining custody of her son, but she was lost and stopped at a store to ask for directions on where to go. After someone couldn't help her out, a man entered who she recognized as her friend's father and felt safe with getting into his vehicle after he offered to take her. Their conversation led him to mention that he had puppies back at his place and he would give her one for her kid. When they got into the house and she heard no puppies, she began to get nervous of what was actually going on. After leading her upstairs, he told her he was going to hold her there for only a short while. While she began to cry and fight back is when he tied her up with extension cords and cables and raped her. Knight would go on to spend 11 long and agonizing years at this house. His next victim wouldn't come until the year after, on April 21st, 2003. Amanda buried just like any other 16-year-old at the time, going to school, working, and coming home from her everyday routine. It all changed one day. She could not get a ride from anyone, not even her mom or her closest friend. So she began to walk home until she spotted a familiar van and was offered a ride. Unfortunately, the man driving was Ariel Castro. He did not drive her home, but rather to his place where she would spend the next decade. The next year, Castro's daughter Arlene had made plans with a friend, but had gone their separate ways after hanging out. Gina DeJesus, who was 14 at the time, ran into her friend's dad, who said he was looking for her and asked for Gina's help. However, when she got into the car with him, they started going a different direction than she said, which was to his house where he would keep her along with the other girls. Their families and friends searched for them tirelessly, posting flyers and offering rewards for any information, but they had no leads and no clues, and the police investigation seemed to hit a dead end. The women were feared dead or taken far away, never to be seen again. But they were actually just a few miles from their families, held captive in the home of Ariel Castro. At first, Castro kept the women in a soundproofed basement, but eventually moved them upstairs where he kept them locked in their rooms and shackled together with chains. They were only allowed out of the room on his command, so to feed them, he would slide their food through holes in the door. They were also forced to use containers as toilets, which he did not empty. These 3 girls were constantly subjected to sexual and physical abuse, to the point where he impregnated Knight multiple times, but kept causing her to miscarry through starvation and beatings. The women were not allowed to leave the house and were rarely allowed to see daylight. They were isolated from the outside world and had no contact with anyone except for Castro. They were not allowed to have phones, computers, or any other means of communication. They were not allowed to see a doctor, and they were not given proper nutrition or medical care. Not only did Castro abuse them physically, but they were also subjected to constant threats and intimidation. He would constantly set traps for the girls, tempting them with their freedom, only to severely punish them when they would take the opportunity. Along with all of that, he would force the girls to celebrate their abduction day on the anniversary of their imprisonment. On one occasion, Gina's mother was handing out flyers to spread awareness of her disappearance. Castro went up to her and took a flyer only to take it back to Gina and tell her that she would never be found. However, after years of constant abuse and rape, one of the girls came to realize that she was pregnant. Neither Berry nor Castro wanted a child in this situation, but he could not take her out of the house, so he forced her to have the child in the home. Once she went into labor, he forced her to deliver in a kiddie pool with the help of Michelle Knight to avoid the mess. Although Berry was forced to have a child due to the situation, she tried to make the most of it not to lose hope. While still in the house, she would pretend to walk her child, Jocelyn, to kindergarten and then go on to teach her what a child would learn. The other two girls, Gina and Michelle, were usually kept together in a room. However, Michelle proved to be the most troublesome for Castro, which led to her being in trouble with him at times. He would take it out on her by tying her to a support beam in the basement, withholding food from her, and frequently beating as well as assaulting her. According to her statements, she was pregnant at least 5 times, but would punch her in the stomach so much that it caused permanent damage. On May 6, 2013, Amanda Berry's daughter had gone out of the room looking for her dad, but couldn't find him anywhere. She went back to her mom and told her that Castro and his car were both gone. This was the first time that he had left the house without locking Berry's room. She cautiously went to the front door and managed to stick her hand out enough to flag down a passerby. With his help, they broke the door down and she ran to the neighbor's house to call the police. When the cops arrive and enter the house, they find the 3 girls and are able to safely take them in. They were finally able to reunite with their families after over a decade of captivity. Castro was arrested and charged with kidnapping, rape, and other crimes. During his trial, he argued that he was a victim to his own sexual addiction, as well as the women. Castro also went on to say that most of the sex that happened in the house was consensual, according to his own delusions. However, he was found guilty and tried as such. In July 2013, he was sentenced to life in prison plus 1,000 years, but his punishment did not last long. A little over a month in, much better conditions than he had placed those women in, he hung himself with his bed sheets in his cell. The story of the kidnapping and the women's captivity shocked the world and sparked outrage and horror. The women have since spoken out about their experiences and have written books and given interviews about their ordeals. They have also started foundations and charities to help other victims of abuse and abduction. The journey to recovery has been long and challenging for the 3 women and is still ongoing to this day. They have had to cope with not only their physical and emotional wounds, but also the trauma of being separated from their loved ones for so long. But they have also found strength and support in each other and in their families. They have undergone therapy to be able to reintegrate into society and their families, and have learned new skills and hobbies. They have also become advocates for other victims of abuse and abduction, sharing their stories and raising awareness about the issues. The women have also met with policymakers and lawmakers, advocating for stricter laws and better support for victims of abuse and abduction. They have testified before Congress and even met with President Obama and other officials. Gina DeJesus even started a center specifically to aid families of missing persons, spread awareness by providing flyers and mediating contact with the police for the families in distress. Even after being through such a horrendous experience, these women are still doing everything in their power to make sure that if this does happen to others, that they can do the most to help. Michelle Knight, Amanda Berry, and Gina DeJesus are the epitome of bravery and being courageous even when there is no hope. What are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comment section below. If you liked today's video and found it interesting, then make sure to leave us a thumbs up. And do not forget to subscribe to our channel, AF Crime, and click on the bell icon to always be updated with the latest content as soon as it's uploaded. Thanks for watching. See you again soon in another crime-busting video.